In this case study video, we're going to talk about a hotel group that went from being a relatively small local business to being one of the biggest hotel groups in Europe in just 3 years. So in the early 2000s, a small regional hotel group operating 13 hotels decided to go through what can only be described as a hockey stick growth program. I originally came into contact with this group when they were nearing the end of their growth program, when they acquired one of our hotel group clients. Within 3 years, this group grew from owning 13 hotels to buying 835 hotels, inns, and pubs across the UK. During that time, they'd grown to be the 11th largest hotel company in the UK and the fastest growing hotel and leisure group. It's the type of thing you have to stand back and say, wow, at the numbers. But the problem is their foundations were built on sand. Every time the business acquired a new location, each acquired business would be divided into 2 separate companies. The first being a property company, which would own the building, and the second company being the hotel operator. The hotel operator would then rent the buildings from the property company. Both of these companies were valued differently, which is really what their business model was. Whilst the hotel operator might be valued at a 3 times profit multiple, the property company might be valued at 10 times its revenue. They use the same cookie cutter model for every acquisition. They'd buy an existing group of hotels or pubs at, say, a 5 times profit multiple. They'd split it up into 2 companies. On day one, the operating business would sign a guaranteed rental agreement for the property, which was far higher than the market rate. And then the property company would refinance its property at 10 times this increased rental figure. And this gave them the money they needed to go after the next acquisition, using the valuation arbitrage. Was a quite smart model on the face of it. So I've shown an example here. So now bear in mind, all that actually happened here was just moving numbers around in the finances. Nothing at all happened with the physical hotel buildings or the hotel business. So in this case, increasing the property rent from 50,000 to up to 200,000, that reduces the operating company's profit down to 100,000, but that doesn't matter because they still own it. Now on day one, a new company is set up to own the property, which the operating company pays rent to, and that's now earning £200,000 a year. And property company is valued at a multiple of revenue rather than profit. So in this example, that's 10 times revenue. So you can see based on that, the building is worth 2 million. And add that to the operating company, and the total value of the business is 2.5 million. It's doubled in value without doing anything. They then just refinanced the business, pulling most of that money out so they could use that to buy the next business. It was like free money until it had to be repaid. Now that's just a single hotel example, but they were buying bulk hotels, 5, 10, 15, 20 hotels at a time. Whilst they were growing quickly, to keep that hamster wheel spinning at the same pace, they started to take on any business that they could get their hands on. The thirst for that free money became uncontrollable. Over the 3-year period, many of the businesses that they acquired were falling apart. Many of the properties needed full renovation. The problem was that the group didn't have the capital to renovate 835 properties. They drained as much equity from each business to fund the next transaction. The operating businesses were underwater, being forced to pay those excessive rents, whilst the property company now had a large debt service to cover after they refinanced it. As the buildings were in such a poor state of repair, maintenance budgets had been slashed, and customers just stopped coming. Many of those customers were coach tours and big travel companies. So the cancellation by a single coach operator meant an entire group of hotels would be empty for more than a week at a time. And on a countrywide basis, that meant lots of empty hotels. The business was no longer able to meet its debt obligations, and the whole empire crumbled. Now, if the business used some of that refinancing to renovate each property, they would have kept their stream of clients. This, of course, would have caused slower growth, but the balance sheet would have been much stronger and the business model more sustainable. Unfortunately, their growth model was flawed, though. They tried to squeeze too much money from every transaction, which ultimately led to its collapse. the lack of paying customers only sped up that inevitable outcome.